Okay, this is a demo of the Worshipsong Band UTF-8 font capabilities that we're putting in. So this is a Be Thou My Vision, a Chinese translation that I got from somebody named Esther Ong, who was doing some Chinese translations. And what you can see here is the chord chart is able to show UTF-8 fonts translated to UTF-15 and rendered on the screen. So these are basically um, simplified Chinese glyphs. So I'll add a little word about the font here. So um, the font that I chose to do this is called Google Noto Sans Pan CJK Simplified Chinese Version. If you want to do a deep dive into some interesting stuff, look up the term Han unification and how it relates to UTF-8. The bottom line of all that is that there's one mega font that Google has put together, and they're not the only ones. There's a couple of other people. That mega font includes the most common glyphs for Western languages, Eastern European languages, and Asian languages all in one big font. And that font in this particular case is what they call a pan CJK font, which means it has glyphs for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean with orientation towards simplified Chinese when you have to make a choice about certain glyphs. That's what all that means. So for Worshipsong Band, what that means is that there's one font that we've used for the chords in this um, experiment here, or this attempt, that covers all the like 80% of the languages on Earth, and that's this font right here. And so as you can see, we can do the chords like that. If I hit the lyric display here, I have the lyric in dual language mode, and I'll show you a little bit about how that works a little bit later. So here I'm doing Chinese and English at the same time. Um, Now I'll show you this, how this works in the chord chart. Okay. Um, this other little window capture here is the editor window in Worshipsong Band. So in order to do this, I also use the same font but in a monospace format in the chord chart editor. That's what you see here. Um, so I have multiple languages of the chord chart within here. Um, there's a new section in the chord chart, which has actually been in there for a while, but I think only a couple of people use it. Languages, English, Chinese, Spanish. And there's a new format tag called Chord Pro format. Um, so Chord Pro is this format where basically instead of putting the chords on the line above, you put the chords in the line instead. And the reason we do that here is because um, it's actually necessary to do these wide glyphs like these Chinese characters. So we've added support for it. You can use it in any chord chart if you want, or you can still, if you don't use Chord Pro format, you can use the standard chord line, and this monospace font that's in here will still do the trick for you. So if you're English or Spanish or Italian or Portuguese, you can do it the way you always have. But if you're going to use Chord Pro to do international stuff, you have to use it for all of the chord charts. So you'll have to convert your chords to Chord Pro. And there's actually a tool called Chordsmith that'll do that for you that I use. It's just a Java program you can go out and find. Anyway, so I've converted this to chords here. The second one is basically the same chord chart, but with Chinese glyphs. So I've done a little bit of guessing about where to put these because I don't actually speak Chinese, but um, so here's verse 1, verse 2, and so on. So it's the same chord chart, the same Chord Pro format, and the UTF-8 text interspersed between the chords. So you can copy and paste or whatever you can do to type into this text editor to get your text in here like this. The third version is the Spanish here. Um, so all the characters that you need to do your typing will show up in the editor, and the editor will return a UTF-8 text buffer that's used. So this will not change any existing sawing that you have. It'll still work just the same. The only difference you will notice is that a different font in the chord editor to support all of these languages. And like I said before, these are in order: English, Chinese, Spanish. And so if that happens, it's going to look for 3 chord charts: chord chart 1 English, chord chart 2 Chinese, chord chart 3 Spanish. You can put as many as you want, whatever languages you want in here, as long as you give them the same name in all of your library. Then you can set up your library with chords in whatever languages you want. So maybe some of the providers will figure out if they want to put some different languages in the chord charts in what you can download for Worshipsong Band. So within Worshipsong Band, basically you have um, the Chord Pro spacing. So the spacing comes here just like you would expect it. And then you have these glyphs. Another example here, you can actually make the song name also using fonts, but that's really it, the song name and the chords, the lyric text. Here's Cyrillic here. So that's what the Cyrillic font looks like. It's the same font basically, so you'll notice the style of the characters is always the same, even if it's in different character sets. It's a very uniform looking font. We may go in and add some other fonts that you can use, but for English primarily, I don't think we'll do anything but this Noto font for UTF-8 support, because it's actually not that easy to support all these languages with one font. So I think we'll stick with this Noto font and go with that. Um, Anyway, so to do the dual language display, you set up another text file in your library called languages.txt, and that will help you to do the dual languages display. And I'll document that, how to set that up on the website. You basically say which language out of any of the languages in your library you want to be primary and which language you want to be secondary. And so if you just wanted to do everything in Chinese and you had these multilingual chord charts, you could just have your primary language be Chinese, and it would always pick the Chinese chord chart, or Spanish or whatever. And if you don't specify languages and you don't have languages in your chords, it assumes everything is English and just shows whatever the one chord chart becomes the primary one if you don't do anything. So the important thing is the nothing changes unless you want to use the multilingual capabilities. Then you can use this stuff. The only real change is we've changed to this Noto font for kind of the primary lyric font in the chord chart. So anyway, that's what we got cooking, and we'll be trying to release at least a beta version of this to to Windows users here pretty soon. and then we'll try to go for the Mac and the um, mobile versions, at least for chord display stuff.